It's hard to believe, but we are heading into week 8 of the fantasy football season. This is crunch time for you to find some targets for you to trade for to help you make that push for the playoffs.
Hike!
So, Joe, who do you have as your first trade target?
Yeah, my first trade target, I'm going to go with wide receiver Courtland Sutton. He's kind of had he had a hot start to the season, then cooled off for a couple weeks, but he's had a resurgence the last couple weeks against the Chiefs and then the Packers. Both games getting 6 targets, gotten touchdowns in both games. So far out of the last 5 games here, there's only been 1 game he hasn't scored a touchdown. So even though he hasn't felt to be the most consistent guy, he's been putting up numbers, seems to be Russ's preferred target. I also expect Jerry Jeudy to be moved. So I think he'll eventually be here, the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver for the Broncos going forward.
Yeah, both of them have been subject to rumors. And as a result, I think that Jeudy will be the one that's more likely to be moved. And I'm with you. He's been a preferred target. And I'm really liking his usage right now. So who are the guys that you would be willing to trade to acquire Sutton?
Yeah, looking at trade value chart here, there's some guys ahead of him. Probably somebody like George Pickens, DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe even guy like Terry McLaurin. I'd probably rather have Sutton over as well.
T. Higgins as well?
Yeah, I'd probably be willing to do that. I think T. Higgins is an interesting name, but his usage in that offense has just been up and down. I know that Burrow is just finally getting healthy here, but he hasn't done a whole bunch of those targets. I think Sutton's been the more consistent guy, and I think Sutton's just more likely to get the touchdown.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Pickens, I don't agree with you on because I like Pickens. Hopkins, we don't know. It sounds like with Tannehill on that bye, with the possible high ankle sprain, how's that going to affect Hopkins? Is it Malik Willis? Are they going to bring in Will Levis? I just don't know what to expect.
Not good.
Who?
It doesn't matter. Either one of those guys is not going to be good for DeAndre Hopkins.
No, it probably won't be. And then you've got, like you said, McLaurin. I don't know. I feel like he's not consistent. Higgins is interesting because he's got that name clout, but he hasn't been good. Has that rib injury. He's probably a guy I wouldn't be surprised if he's being traded or talked about in a lot of leagues because the owner who has him is unsatisfied. And then the team looking outside, looking in says, oh, it's T. Higgins. If I get him and he turns it on, then I could be really good. So he would probably be one that's probably could see that happening. I think you could even do probably get Courtland Sutton plus for T. Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you believe in T. Higgins and his talent and the turnaround in this Bengals offense and himself in it, I mean, he's a good buy low candidate. I just don't necessarily know if I believe in it. There's other guys in the offense, and right now Jamar Chase is just the guy.
So my first trade target, and I have to admit I'm a little biased here, but I'm going to go with my guy, Dalton Kincaid, and in for the Buffalo Bills. Thought he could have a breakout season with the Bills because of his skill set, and we finally saw that on display against the Patriots. They've been needing somebody who's been a security blanket to Diggs, and I think, to Allen, right? Because Diggs has been the guy. But I think Kincaid, they could even use him a little bit more. He's very shifty, especially for a tight end. Look, he had 8 targets for 8 catches for 75 yards. And I believe right now he was tight end 6. So he's a tight end 1. If he continues to get this volume, I think he's going to be a great option for tight end, which we know, Joe, is a complete wasteland. Currently, based on the trade value chart, he's pretty low. I imagine that he's going to get quite a bump after this. But at this point, the only tight ends I wouldn't trade for him at this point is, guys like Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Laporta, Kittle, Goddard, and Waller. Basically, every other tight end I would be willing to trade away to go ahead and get Kincaid. And then kind of a comparable player on the other side, I'd be willing to trade guys like A.J. Dillon, Kareem Hunt, Jerry Jeudy, Gabe Davis, kind of those type of players around that value. He might even be available potentially on your wire to go pick him up because people might have abandoned him and not thinking that he's going to be any good. Sometimes rookies take a while to eventually catch fire. This might be that time.
Yeah, they definitely do take a while. I'm just curious to see. I'd be curious to see if this utilization continues. The Patriots have a way of taking away your number one target. Just curious if other teams will be that successful, kind of slowing down Stephon Diggs, where Allen will look elsewhere and kind of need that more of that security blanket in Kincaid.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So Joe, who is your second trade target?
Yeah, my second trade target is wide receiver Joshua Palmer. He's had now 4 straight weeks with at least seven targets. He had 8 in one of those games against the Las Vegas Raiders. And then he's only had the 1 touchdown. So I think, there could be additional touchdowns to come for him. But, he's really solidified himself as the number 2 in that offense since Mike Williams went down with the injury. Thought Quentin Johnston might have more of an impact as a rookie, but he definitely doesn't seem to be a part of it. It's really Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer at this point.
Yeah, and the benefit with trading for a guy like Josh Palmer is more than likely he was a waiver wire pickup. More than likely he was not drafted. After Mike Williams went down, people went and tried to get him. But I'm with you. He's been consistent. Who are some players that you'd be trading away so that you could acquire him?
Yeah, looking at the values, definitely, Michael Thomas, Gabe Davis, Jerry Jeudy, and Tank Dell. Those guys I would probably for sure, be willing to trade away for him.
Would you be willing to trade any comparable players as far as other positions? So like Kareem Hunt, Tyler Algier, Miles Sanders, Darren Waller, anything like that?
Yeah, probably wouldn't do Darren Waller just because the tight end is a crapshoot and he has that potential, especially if Tyrod Taylor is going to be the quarterback moving forward. I really like Waller, but the running backs for sure. Algier up until this week where Bijan was quote unquote sick and didn't really play, he had been a disappointment. And so I'd definitely be willing to move on him. And, Miles Sanders has been pretty disappointing as well. Now, he's dealing with injuries. But Chuba Hubbard looks a lot better than him. So I think this might be a good time to move on from him.
Yeah, I like Palmer. I think he's consistent. I think he can be a solid flex play. Possible wide receiver too, depending on, game script and how things. Keenan's the number 1 guy there. But he has that upside, I think, at times, but definitely a good flex play.
Yeah, I don't, if he's got more matchups like the Chiefs, the Chargers don't really have a defense, which is good. So, they're going to be in potentially a decent amount of shootouts.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Quentin Johnston hasn't been more involved. That's been surprising. So my second trade target just so happens to be another my guy. This could be a possible buy low option for you all, but it'd be running back Bijan Robinson. You alluded to it, Joe. He was sick and did not play. I find that to be quite phony, but it's very puzzling to me. He had 1 carry for 3 yards, and that carry, I believe, came towards the end of where basically time was expiring in the game, and then he couldn't play the entire game. Cordell Patterson was more involved. I think that Bijan Robinson owner could be panicking. I know I would be if I had him because his usage has been kind of subpar anyways. But with running back, it is more of a crapshoot than people actually think. I feel like with all the injuries that are going on and the possible usage and just the NFL using a 2 running back system, at this point, I think the only running backs I would not be willing to trade away to acquire him would be McCaffrey and Kamara. I think every other running back I'd be willing to trade away to acquire Bijan Robinson at this point.
So would you try to trade Travis Etienne and get Bijan plus then?
I don't know. I don't know if you. I don't. It's so hard to know, right? From perceived value, people would say Bijan's way better than ETN, but ETN, based on performance, has played really well. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know whether the Bijan Robinson owner does it, but ETN has done it consistently over 3 weeks. Our main concern about ETN was Tank Bigsby's involvement, which has been next to nothing.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been very surprised how limited his involvement has been. So, as a result, and I think he has like the most missed tackles out of any running back right now. So, he's playing at a very high level. So, I would rather have Bijan, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Some would probably say there's no way they would do that. I think it's possible. It's worth asking.
Yeah. Well, I think it just, as we mentioned before, just patience with rookies is important. Everyone was up in arms over Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, he finally got his chance, had a decent game, even though the Lions offense really struggled today and didn't really look good. But Gibbs was a bright spot and got a touchdown and finally got some opportunities.
So yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. Like, I mean, cross positionally, maybe you trade a guy like I don't know if they do it, but maybe like a Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb area. Maybe I'd probably be willing to trade him on Ross St. Brown for him. It just really depends. That's where we get into the part. Are you a PPR league or are you a standard league? Because that could change things drastically.
Right.
I think this is the thing. If you're a Bijan owner, you're probably slightly panicking. And I think you have a reason to panic. I'm not saying like I do think it's a buy low opportunity. I do really like the player. I think Arthur Smith just doesn't care about fantasy owners. And as a result, oh yeah, absolutely. And he's winning games of what he's doing. So I think it's a legitimate concern. If I have Bijan, like I'm considering it. He's got the upside. He has league winning upside, but who knows? It may be because of Tyler Algier getting injured or Cordell Patterson getting injured, which allows him to get back in the fold. I don't know, but it's one of those things where it's like the upside is very tantalizing, and to me, I'd shoot the moon. You got to go for it. And I think it's a decent time, and the Bijan Robinson owner might do it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a time to buy this guy really low, it's this. I mean, the Bijan Robinson owners have to be panicking. I mean, let's face it, most people had to spend a first-round pick to get this guy. Everyone thought, he was drafted in the top 10 in the actual NFL draft, just a complete smash at running back. Some thought he was going to be the best fantasy running back this year even. So he's got the potential. If you've got a winning record and you've got a chance to take that swing and maybe the Bijan guy, because Bijan hasn't been performing, maybe that team doesn't have that many wins and needs to make some sort of move, and you give them some players to help them get some wins, but you have the patience to wait. I think that's the perfect situation.
Yeah, I think the reality is I projected him to be the best running, or I think the best, if not one of the best. I thought he was going to be really good. I think he'll end up still being an RB1 by the end of the year. And with so many injuries that happen, it's not out of the question that Algier or Cordell Patterson get injured. I don't think he's going to be as good as people, however high you drafted him. I don't think he'll get to that point, but he still has that upside, and that's why I think you got to go for it.
Yeah, I think the frustrating part is we've seen it. We've seen the flashes of brilliance by him. I mean, plays where he's making the one-handed catches and making the crazy juke moves and getting around guys. We've really seen it. But like you said, I mean, Arthur Smith, he really does not care about our fantasy teams and fantasy performances. All he cares about is winning games, and what he's doing is working. They're competitive every week.
Well, same thing with Kyle Pitts. I mean, you and I were watching. It's like he made a one-handed catch that was absolutely phenomenal, but it was like a 4-yard drag route. And it was like, good, so he does that. That's all he's able to do because the offense is so limiting to these players that just have this huge upside. So it's like a buyer beware situation, right? Because it's like you have this like premium item that's on a discount and you want to go for it, but you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why I think if you're at a point where you've got a decent amount of wins on the year and you can afford to take this swing, I mean, he's a potential league winner for you in the second half of the season, if they finally turn things over to him.
So that's 4 trade targets for week 8. Make sure you check back next week and we'll go through week 9. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.